coming up on Lawmakers. A D.C. court is expected to hand down their redistricting decision Friday. The governor asked House Rules to put some of his bills on the calendar. And the Senate passes the Internet driver's license bill. Those stories and more coming up next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Tuesday, April 2nd. Here are your hosts, Susan Hoffman and Gerald Bryant.
Good evening, everyone. Also on tonight's broadcast, the proposed Northern Arc continues to generate controversy.
But our top story tonight, the Capitol buzzes with news that a court finding on reapportionment is due Friday.
Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor tells us that long-awaited decision from the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. is now expected by the end of the week. I asked if there would be enough time left if the court wants changes in the House, Senate, or congressional maps.
To make a lot of changes will take as much time as to make a few changes. Certainly we anticipate that the changes will be minor and that they can be dealt with in a short period of time. If the judges surprise us with a very broad order, then we'll have to reconsider, and you would have to consider a special session at that point. But at this point, we think the changes, if there are any, we're still optimistic that the plan will be approved in total. There are some changes, and we should be able to make them next week.
The legislature plans to take Thursday and Friday of this week off. There are reports they'll also take Monday and Thursday of next week off and adjourn sine die on Friday.
Earlier today, I talked with Senate Minority Leader Eric Johnson regarding reapportionment. I started by asking him if he could confirm that Friday is the day a decision could actually come down.
Both sides are reporting that the judge told the attorneys that they were trying to release a decision on Friday, that they had no indication of what the decision would be, but they plan to release it on Friday.
Now, when you say no indication, does that mean you have no idea if it's just the Senate map or all three maps?
No. The only reason people are assuming the Senate map is because the Justice Department and the ACLU both raised objections to the Senate plan.
All right. I understand that there is a Democratic alternative and that they do have the votes. The Democrats do have the votes, 29 votes to be exact, to get through this alternative map. However, you have a map as well that you're floating. Describe that map, and do you think you can get it passed?
Well, we've had a map that Senator Tommy Williams has been working on for several weeks, working with both sides, every single senator, talking to them about what they want. And we believe it would be a 33 or 34 Democratic seats and 22 or 23 Republican seats. And then there would be some competitive seats the next decade. But the Republicans would have to earn the majority and the Democrats would have to defend the majority.
If you were a betting man, do you think you can get this bipartisan bill passed?
Well, I would doubt that the Democrats have 29 votes yet. I have seen no map, nor have I talked to any senators who have seen a map. So it's easy to say we're going to have a map and we're going to have the votes. But as we saw last time, they got one vote more than they needed. So it's going to be difficult.
Squeaky, for sure.
Without bipartisan support.
Let me ask you this. In the days remaining, if it is just the Senate map that has to change, is it doable?
By our rules, it's a squeaker, but they can do it. But if it's got any controversy at all, it's going to be caught up in the middle of a budget negotiations, predatory lending, gas. So it'll be a very difficult process unless there's bipartisan cooperation. Because remember, the other thing is, if we pass another map, it's still got to go through the same process again. It's got to go to the Justice Department or the court. So I think it's in the Democrats' best interest to have the Republicans supportive of the map and not contesting another map for the second time with the qualifying coming up in June.
When you've had discussions with Democratic leadership, have they been receptive to your argument?
Not as long as they think they don't need us. But, we're going to try and make them need us before it's over with.
All right. Senator Eric Johnson, thanks so much for joining us. The Governor's Senate Floor Leader Steve Thompson has a big hand in the reapportionment process. Earlier today, I also spoke with him and asked if Friday was in fact the day and which, if any, maps would be affected.
Well, Susan, I hesitate to prognosticate or predict because I've been wrong every time this year. My record is not nearly as good this year. We did hear that there's some discussion about a decision coming down Friday and talked about possibly what that would mean. And the word has been that there might be one or two of the Senate districts they want to revisit. I don't know. That possibly the House and the congressional map have passed muster. But these are all rumors and things that are being passed back and forth. But it seems to be, there seems to be some credibility that something may happen late this week.
Okay.
And if that's the case, it'll be a blessing, because we'd like to save the citizens some money and try to put this thing to bed and let every member of both parties go back home, go to work, and get ready to run.
Can you confirm or deny that there is an alternative Senate map that could pass easily? I've been told the votes are there.
I would never tell you that the votes are there on a reapportionment map, because what happens, I've been through two special, extraordinary, and then 3 regular sessions of reapportionment starting in 81, 91, and 201. If you change one thing and there's a ripple, then it may affect 5 senators. And the votes you had yesterday, you don't have today. However, I do think most of our folks are together on what we have tried to do for the people of Georgia and giving them good representation in districts in which the senators feel like that they can run, that communities can communicate, and I feel like that we'll have the votes. I have not seen a map. I have seen 3 or 4 maps from both sides, people coming around, what do you think about this, what do you think about this? Have I seen a map from any leader of the Senate? All are leaders, but some are vested with that responsibility. No, I have not.
All right. Can you tell me this? How desperately do you need Republicans to be on board in order to get this through and have it pass the feds?
Well, I don't know. I think what we have to do is to make sure that we adhere to the law in Section 5 in the Voting Rights Act and those things in the recent court decisions, which has defined that more clearly. I think what we have to do is have a majority vote, 29 votes to pass it in the Senate, and also write, as we feel like we had done, in adjusting to the law appropriately. Now, if they feel like we haven't, then of course we'll make those corrections and try again to do what we think they're telling us in the courts. We need our folks to be together, but we'd love to have some Republican votes. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. Many times on big issues, caucuses stay together. That's part of politics, and I'm not criticizing anyone for that.
All right. Senator Steve Thompson, the governor's floor leader, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This morning, Governor Barnes made a rare appearance in the House Rules Committee. The session is nearing completion, and several of the governor's bills are still floating in the House and Senate. So he requested that 3 Senate bills be put on tomorrow's House calendar, and the committee granted that request. David Zelski is standing by live from the House chambers with more on that story. David.
Well, Senate bills involving green space, loan forgiveness, and protecting against bioterrorism were all part of the governor's request to the Rules Committee. And from the looks of things, the committee seemed to enjoy the governor's Rules Committee cameo.
Chairman, let me call off here what we want. Senate Bill 385 is we're fighting bioterrorism. Move.
We put Barnes down by the...
Put Smith there, please.
I don't remember him getting 3 when it's a number.
That's his ain't true. 438 is a cleanup bill for our green space program. Allow a few more cities to get in. And 465 is a loan forgiveness bill for district attorneys, assistant district attorneys, and other public.
Came out of higher ed yesterday. Came out of higher ed yesterday.
Yeah. Flew out yesterday. So,
y'all had it yesterday?
Yeah. And putting it on today? That's good government.
Now, the governor still has a few of his bills in House and Senate committees, but the 3 he mentioned today in the Rules Committee do have a good chance of coming to a vote on the House floor as soon as tomorrow. Reporting live from the House chambers, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, David.
As you may know, the Georgia Tollway Authority just signed an agreement with the Federal Highway Administration and the Georgia Department of Transportation, allowing the authority to spend money generated by Georgia 400, a toll road, on the proposed Northern Arc. Some wonder if it is legal, but in the meantime, Representative Bob Irvin is asking his colleagues to encourage the Tollway Authority not to pursue the practice. Here's Irvin.
Many of us, maybe all of us, were astonished yesterday to read in the newspaper that the State Tollway Authority has signed an agreement with the federal government and with the state DOT to allow them to take money from one toll project and spend it on anything else that they want to, any other toll project in the state. It was written up as being about Georgia 400 and the Northern Arc, and it is, but it's also about taking money from the Taurus Tollway at St. Simons and any other future tollway project that gets built. If we allow money to be taken from one toll facility and spent on something else, it undercuts the whole philosophical basis for toll financing, which is that users pay for the construction of facilities. If you allow money to be taken from one facility and spent on another, it turns the toll into a tax. The Tollway Authority tells me they do not actually yet have a policy on whether they're going to do this. I have a resolution that asks them to adopt a policy that they will not do this. So it's going to be up here at the desk also, and I'd like to ask you to sign it if you'd like.
As you just heard, Tollway Authority Executive Director Jim Croy says that he is still considering the provisions, and according to the AJC, Croy says that we have not ruled it in or ruled it out.
The push continues for passage of predatory lending legislation by the end of this session. Today, a very vocal group of advocates lobbied for a strong bill against unscrupulous lenders. Hamilton Northcutt joins us live with an update on this continuing story. Hamilton.
The nonprofit group called NACA, the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, has visited the Capitol several times in the past few weeks. They're fighting for a stronger bill than the one the House passed last week.
This bill came through the House and it was badly gutted. 11 amendments.
NACA brought half a dozen predatory lending victims to the Capitol to make the case for strict regulations on the loan industry.
My mortgage rate was at 13%. And my payments were $771 a month, which was a struggle since I'm on a fixed income.
We started out with what we considered was a fixed rate, and then a couple of years later we got a balloon rate, a balloon increase. We did not know where that came from. I don't know where it came from, but at the same token, I'm paying 12.5.
I got the loan for a second mortgage, and it's about 16% for both mortgages.
Members of the group met with House Banking Committee Chairman Butch Parrish to voice their concerns about the weakened bill approved in the House.
I think we passed a bill out of the House that's balanced. All of us want to stop predatory lending. The problem is, how do you do that without adversely affecting those people who lend properly? You remember deregulation of natural gas, the unintended consequences. We don't want to get into something like that again.
If the Senate okays a tougher lending bill, how will the House handle it?
There could be a possibility that we'd move to accept the Senate version of the bill. I don't know how high that possibility is. Conference committee, we just have to wait and see what happens. For the governor's office, we'll be pushing to make the bill as strong as we can and still have a reasonable bill.
Representative Charlie Smith says it may come down to the last day of the session, but if this isn't the year for a predatory lending bill to pass, then he doesn't know when the year will be. And that's a quote. Reporting live from the Capitol, I'm Hamilton Northcutt for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, Hamilton.
And the House says maybe to a bill that would require every county in the state to establish a local elections board. The bill, Senate Bill 32, was presented by Representative Buddy DeLoach. He says it is important to have uniformity in all counties. However, he also said if a local statute is in place or is developed in the future, it would supersede the state's requirements. Here is Representative DeLoach explaining the bill.
The Board of Election would have 5 members. 2 of those would be appointed by either your local executive committee of the political party or political body whose candidate received the highest number of votes for governor in the last governor's election. 2 members would be from the party whose candidate for governor received the second highest number of votes for governor. A 5th member would be appointed by the chief superior court judge in that county from a list provided by those other 4 members. I think it's very important to note that there's also a provision for how those members would be appointed if, in fact, the candidate for governor that received the highest number, the second highest number, was not a member of a political party. And you'll find that provision in there also.
Some in the House complained if local statutes remained in effect, there would not be uniformity and the bill would not accomplish what it set out to do. Others said it would help probate judges who did not want to head up county elections. Take a look.
There has been a lot of probate judges who are serving their first term. And these probate judges are saying that they do not know anything about the new system that's coming in. They don't want to be over elections. And I think this bill gives them an opportunity not to be over elections, but if any county wants to have the probate judge over elections, all you got to do is introduce local legislation. But the problem is, right now, we have some local probate judges who do not want to be the election superintendent. And they don't have a way out of this thing when you have a split delegation.
I am opposed to this bill. I have been instructed by the commissioners in my 3 counties that they are opposed to this bill. We do not feel that we need a board of elections. In one county north of us, it costs $90,000 a year to provide for that board of electors, and we are opposed to this bill.
In the end, the bill was lost. The vote on it 88 to 71, but moments later, the House moved to reconsider its action. Due to House rules, the bill has to sit for 24 hours before another vote.
The House bill allowing you to renew your driver's license on the Internet passed the Senate today. Republican Minority Leader Eric Johnson wanted to amend the bill to require non-U.S. citizens' licenses to bear a special mark.
Right now with repeat offenders for drunk driving, we put a red stripe on. This would identify non-U.S. citizens with a green stripe, so that it would prevent use of photo driver's licenses for voting or other purposes. People would know that whether they or not they're a U.S. citizen. There's an amendment that's being prepared by the senator from the 37th district that would delay it for a year to allow the department to be ready for this. They apparently are not, right now, do not have that information. This will give them a year to be ready to provide that.
Isn't it true? I just renewed mine March 13th. That was my birthday, by the way. And I'll go 4 years, and I want to do it electronically. I will not be able to because I will have to go to driver's license station and prove my citizenship.
Sir, I would contend that by July 1st of 2003, they'll be ready. And you'll be able to renew your license on your next birthday.
House Bill 1368 is one of Governor Barnes' bills. The governor's assistant floor leader, Senator Charlie Tanksley, said the Johnson amendment would destroy the bill.
This bill is intended to give our citizens who have been complaining about standing in line for renewal of license that is ministerial as it can possibly be, an outlet that is effective as of July so they don't have to stand in these lines. Now, regardless of how you feel about trying to use this bill to correct the omissions and the lapses of INS, which are legion. We know about those. This is not the way to do it. It's not the way to do it. We don't do it on the backs of people who are standing in line here. And it's mere pretense to think that this is going to do any of that. This is about whether you want your citizens to be able to renew their license in July by internet mail or by mail or not.
The Johnson Amendment lost. House Bill 1368, allowing Internet driver's license renewal, passed 47-0. There was a committee amendment that sends the bill back to the House.
The House Judicial Committee today approved family welfare measures endorsed by the governor and lieutenant governor, but not without several disagreements. Mwandi Lawson is live in the House chambers with more about today's actions. Mwandi.
Well, Susan, with the support of more than 20 child advocacy groups, it would seem that the lieutenant governor's proposal to punish those who mistreat children would move easily through committee. But from the start, legislators have had difficulty crafting the state's first child endangerment law.
The problem came in trying to draft a bill that didn't criminalize the behavior of careless parents.
So the House Judicial Subcommittee offered a bill to define criminal negligence and amend the cruelty to children statute, but some argued that the definition was too broad.
Because any conduct can ultimately lead to death. The point is whether or not the person is intentionally and with criminal negligence placing the child in imminent danger.
The committee adopted an amendment by Representative Warren Massey to limit the statute. An amendment to create degrees of child endangerment also passed, but when committee chair Tom Bordeaux attempted to remove a provision to provide immunity for the victims of domestic violence, that amendment failed. The committee recommended a do pass for SB 407 by a vote of 12-2. The governor's efforts to upgrade the standards for family violence counseling also received a do pass recommendation. Representative Henrietta Turnquist explained why this was needed.
We know that there are several violence intervention programs throughout the state, but there are no general certification procedures.
Some debate arose over a provision making it illegal to solicit counseling business. Representative John Wiles introduced an amendment to strike the clause.
I just think that the idea that you can't talk about what you do for a living on public property is really scary to me. And I really don't know if it's constitutional. I don't know how you can restrict the right of free speech. The Supreme Court said you can't restrict us. I don't know how you can restrict someone's right to stand on a street corner and say, hey, this is what I do for a living.
And that Wiles amendment was approved by the committee. The committee also approved SB 467 by a vote of 11-0. Reporting live from the House chambers, I'm Nwandi Lawson for Lawmakers.
And Nwandi, quickly taking you back to the Lieutenant Governor's child endangerment bill for a moment. Does the measure apply only to parents?
Well, actually, no, Susan. It would apply to anyone who had physical custody of the child. That could be a parent, a grandparent, or other relative, or even a daycare worker or a teacher.
Okay. Thanks so much, Nwandi. In the meantime, the House votes to lift limits on the number of whiting and croaker fish you can bring home in one outing. Today, the House passed SB 347. The original bill wiped out limits for commercial fishermen, but some, like Representative Tommy Smith, felt that all fishermen should be exempt. Here's Smith.
This is the old-timey way of fishing. And a lot of folks in the country still do this. They go out fishing. Well, these little fellas that's doing this, we're excluding them from this bill. And we're saying the big boys can go out and catch all they want. But the little fella that's not having any impact, we're going to keep a limit on them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a chance to do something for the little folks in this state.
The House passed the amendment protecting the little folks, then passed the bill, SB 347. The vote on that was 161-0. It did pass by committee substitute. That means it must go back to the Senate.
The Georgia Senate today passed House Bill 1070, known as the All-Day Bill. The bill requires the State Attorney General to update the families of murder victims on the status of appeals and motions made by death row inmates. 30 years ago, Carl Isaacs and 3 others were arrested and charged in the murder of 5 members of the All-Day family. The family says that no one notifies them when Isaacs makes appeals. Isaacs is on death row in the state prison in Jackson County. The All-Day Bill passed by a vote of 47-0. It now goes back to the House due to a Senate committee amendment.
Students from around Georgia gathered at the Capitol today to participate in Tobacco Prevention Day. Lawmakers Chrissy Knight has our story.
The Surgeon General warns that smoking leads to health problems, including emphysema and lung cancer. And with the numbers of tobacco users increasing among youth minorities, this group says it's time to increase the awareness of the dangers caused by tobacco. Today, members from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC, along with Georgia legislators, met at the Capitol for Tobacco Prevention Day.
Today is Tobacco Prevention Day, but every day ought to be Tobacco Prevention Day. I'm so glad to see the young kids here who are promoting not smoking.
Smoking-related illnesses are the #1 cause of death among African Americans, even surpassing all other things, including AIDS, fatal gunshots, diabetes, and accidental causes.
Studies show that 33% of African American high school students smoke. That number increased from 25% less than a decade. In their effort to fight against tobacco use, the SCLC was recently awarded a $25,000 grant from the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. The money will help launch a grassroots campaign to educate minorities about the dangers of tobacco use.
Speakers from today's event encourage students to get out in their communities and inform their peers about the dangers behind tobacco products. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Chrissy Knight.
Gun violence is a topic of concern for teens across Georgia, and today dozens of young people from the organization Commotion came to the Capitol to let legislators know that they care about each other. Lawmakers Jamie Coran has more.
These Georgia youth are on a mission, their quest to save fellow friends and family members from gun-related tragedies.
And what's so key about it is that gun violence happens every single day. 9 young people die from gun violence in this country. Last year it was 10, so luckily the number is going down. And I'd like to say it's because of the work that people like these young people who are involved in Commotion and other youth groups that want to stop gun violence are doing.
Commotion is a national organization that engages young people in what some say is the new civil rights movement.
It is a movement. It is the new civil rights movement, and that is to stop the plague of gun violence that is taking our children away from us each and every day.
The group prides itself on encouraging teenagers to develop programs centered around the prevention of gun violence. Supporters of this program, called Charging Youth in Action for a Social Change, say that law enforcement, local government agencies, and parents are doing their part to help stop gun violence. But it's Georgia's young people that can really make the biggest difference. Langston Weaver of Decatur is a senior at Columbia High School, and he says he went home and threw away his gun, and that inspired his work of art. And it's those kind of changes that leaders of Commotion are hoping for.
But I tell you, the most significant contribution is going to come from our young people.
If you are a teen or a parent and you'd like to get involved, you can call 202-822-6070. For Lawmakers, I'm Jamie Coran.
The Georgia Moratorium Campaign held a press conference this morning to ask legislators once again to put a freeze on executions in Georgia. The group also delivered over 13,000 petition signatures in support of the moratorium. Representative Nan Orrock announced that she would be filing a House resolution today that would put a halt on state executions and form a study committee to determine the fairness of death penalty sentences.
People are dying at the hands of the state. I call upon Georgia policymakers and the good citizens of Georgia to embark on a road. Let's pull the curtain aside and look at the true facts of what we're doing with the death penalty in our state. This study committee, I trust, will lead us down a road that will take us away from seeing the death penalty and murdering people at the hands of the state as a remedy in a civilized society.
A January 2002 poll by Georgia State University showed that a majority of voters would support a moratorium on death penalties while the problems are addressed. Coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, an interview with Chancellor Thomas Meredith. He is the new head of the University System of Georgia. That again is tomorrow night at 7 here on Lawmakers. And for those of you with access to the internet, you can watch Lawmakers online. Just visit our website, gpb.org. Lawmakers programs are streamed live and then archived on our site every night that we are on the air. And stay tuned as Georgia Outdoors explores coastal birding. Georgia Outdoors is next here on GPTV.
And that is our broadcast for this, the 36th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerald Bryant.
And I'm Susan Hoffman. From everybody here, good night.